gathered together today to have this panel discussion of what it's like or what race, place, and belonging and what being black in Erie is like. Now, how we're going to do this is that the first part of this panel discussion, I'm going to direct all of the questions to the panelists. Now, Christy will be collecting questions for the end. So if you have some questions, please write them down. Write them down. She will collect them so that those questions could be answered and you could actually direct those questions at some of the panelists as well. All right? Now, before we get started, I want to introduce all of our panelists. And we have Tiffany Levette, who is the community and organizer and entrepreneur and also owns her own daycare. We have Autumn Parker, who is a lifelong educator and community leader. We have Edison Nicholson, founder and CEO of Youth Leadership Institute. We have Marty, did I get it? Oh, okay. Chapter and director of Erie County United. Then we have Mark Blunt, community organizer and entrepreneur. And we have attorney Nikki Page, attorney and owner of Page Law. We have Ashton Jones, community office manager at Erie Bank and owner of Ground Zero Visuals. And we have Marshall Blunt, photographer and activist. Then we have myself, the moderator, Pastor Ryan Gaines of the Abundant Life Ministries Church here in Erie, PA. All right? Now, I kind of just want to set some ground rules just real quick before we get started, because with the questions, this could get very intense, all right? Now, I'm asking the audience to please be respectful to the panelists, and before you just keep your comments, if you can, to yourself and to the end. The audience will have an opportunity to ask questions. And when you do ask these questions, we ask that you please ask them with respect, all right? Okay? All right, well, let's get started. Let's get started here. And I'm going to initially direct these first questions to panelists Edison Nicholson and Mark Blunt. And then I'm going to also ask the ladies next. But first, I want to hear from Mr. Nicholson. What does being a black man in Erie, mean to you?
I'm glad you asked me that question. And I'm glad that I'm here today to be a part of this panel because it is truly an experience being black in this community. Not only this community, but black and brown people are suffering all over the country. And so with that said, my experience being black here in Erie is mixed with a whole lot of animosity and as well as just looking at the overall landscape of how far we are behind the 8 ball. There are several different hurdles that we have to overcome, and those hurdles are purposely being set. And so the experience for me is very troubling.
Mr. Blunt?
On the bottom.
Thanks everyone for coming out. Being black to me means that I'm part of a long legacy of African Americans that lived here. It also means that what I faced, other people have faced, and my sons, and hopefully my grandsons, won't have to face, but they do face. So I feel a responsibility, no matter where I go, that not only when I walk in the room, I'm speaking for a whole people. I feel that weight sometimes, and I accept that. I realize sometimes we find ourselves not getting interviews, not getting a job. And then when we get the job, you have to be Jackie Robinson when you get there. And then when you ain't Jackie Robinson, you're not welcome, you don't feel like you belong. We carry that. And that's why we have a Human Relations Commission, and that's why these things are needed. I feel like I'm part of something big as far as the legacies here. I sit next to a Horton here, and I feel that, a Page, but I feel that other Denise, I feel that. And I got a son here, and I got a friend in Edison, and I see this growth here, and I had opened the Subway, and I feel part of this emergence of business people. When I first opened my Subway, there wasn't anything on Parade Street. There wasn't no black businesses. I was the first franchise owner. Then journey 20 years later, I opened a charter school here because I felt our students wasn't being treated and loved and respected in the Erie school district. So I created a charter school, which now has 500 and something students, and we've done pretty well for ourselves after being told no one will go to your school. Who will go to a black school? So I carry that burden. Also, being black means you're connected to something as far as this cello situation. I can't be here tonight and not say that I'm hurt, not say that I'm angry, not say that I can't take advantage of this while you're listening. Being black means I was part of the Children in Poverty Commission. When I first got here, we was the poorest minority children in the 90s. I served on that commission by Joyce Sabacchio nominated. Then we turn around later and we find out we're one of the worst cities to live recently. And we bury that, we carry that. That's a weight that we carry. Then I was part of the People's Supper, which is something like this right here. And I carry a hope that maybe something like this will one day change it for our children, and they don't have to face some of the adversities, some of the barriers that we still talk about today that our parents was talking about and that our grandparents, and that's shameful because we could do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I want to hear from Ms. Parker and Mr. Vet on what does being a black woman in Erie mean to you? Ms. Parker?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, thank you for this question. And quite frankly, it's a beautifully chaotic experience to be a black woman in Erie. I was taking in the commentary that my colleagues were expressing before and hearing the descriptions such as being full of animosity, finding it troubling, and yet also at the same time it coexisting with this rich proudness of legacy and cultural vibrance and resilience. And so when I look at the entirety of my experience as a black woman in Erie, I'm grateful because I have come to the beautiful conclusion of full acceptance of myself in a space that is not always accepting. And yet, at the same time, it's a reminder that I'm not the only one that has lived this journey. I'm not alone in this journey. And I have found an immense sense of community and network through trial and tribulation, but also the sharedness of our humanity that has kept me here. I was telling Ms. Levette earlier when she asked me, I was running in because I was on, my time, which is late. And she said, where are you from? Did you grow up here? I was like, born and raised. And then, she continued to ask me, where'd you grow up? And I found myself smiling the entire time, full of joy. And so when we get to tell our truths in full and start at the basics, that's what I think about with Erie. You gotta start at the basic parts of our humanity. And I've done the work and will continue to do that work within a town that gives opportunity for hard work to be done. It's not easy. But again, I have found a oneness, a shared humanity, being a Black woman in this city on the lake. That is not a mistake. It is full. Yes, absolutely, we are not a mistake on the lake. I don't necessarily care for the sentiment of it's okay to love Erie. That's weird. That's how I feel. But it's like either you do or you don't. And all of you in this room surely do, because you wouldn't be showing up to have these honest conversations. And so I am a proud Black Erie woman. We got work to do, but I'm gonna stay here to do it for now. No.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tiffany Levette. What is it like being a Black woman in Erie to me? It means that I walk in, I maintain, and I keep in mind who I am, knowing that if God before me, He's more than a world against me, so it doesn't matter the circumstances that are around me, it doesn't matter the opposition, because where I come from and the women in my family that I've come from are more powerful than that. So it wouldn't matter if I was in a room full of those who didn't like me because of the color of my skin or my gender. It doesn't matter. I know who I am. So being a Black woman to me in Erie, PA is powerful. It doesn't matter what's around me. It doesn't matter the chaos. It doesn't matter the discrimination, the racism, the segregation, any of it. It matters that I know who I am. So my mission and goal is to ensure that every young girl and woman of color in BIPOC communities and understand who we are as women. And it doesn't matter the opposition or what's falling apart around us. We stay focused and we move forward and upward, and that's it. There is nothing else.
You just motivated me, and I'm not, I'm a man, so, oh yeah, y'all can also laugh during this as well, We're gonna have our highs, our lows, our in-betweens, so. All right, next question, and I wanna ask this to Mr. Ashton Jones and Marshall Blunt. How have your experiences here in Erie as a Black man shaped your sense of self-safety, your sense of self, or your sense of belonging? I'm gonna say it again. So, how has your experiences here as a Black man in Erie shape your sense of self, or safety, or belonging?
Hey everyone. Basically, definitely in a narrow way, in the sense of basically keeping close to my community. Definitely being cautious of how I enter spaces, and but at the same time, never forgetting who I am, and also just speaking my mind.
Thank you, everybody, for showing up. I'm Ash Jones, Erie resident, born and raised, been here my whole life. I guess my experience as a Black man, how it's helped shape me is I have 4 sons. I'm the father of 4 boys, so I'm raising young Black men. So in addition to the eyes I might have from the community watching my every move, as a quote-unquote community leader, I have, 4 sets of eyes watching me at all times to make sure I'm doing what I'm preaching. So I think it's super important to me to, always keep that in the forefront of my brain. I'm also someone, like I said, born and raised Erie, Pennsylvania, high school here, college here, and started my family and career here. But I mean, from the outside looking in, you might think I might have it all together. I've always had it all together, and that's not the case. I was kicked out of high school. I was academic probation in college, took a year off, worked at a grocery store, figured it out. And I think that's what shaped me, is figuring out my path in Erie, Pennsylvania, which is voted as one of the worst places for black people to grow up. I grew up here, and I did it. So, I mean, it's possible, and I think that's my message to my kids and the youth that watches is, you can do it, and you can do it here. So do it.
All right, the same question goes to Attorney Page and Marty.
Good evening, everybody. I believe this is the question about how to being black in Erie shape your belonging and safety.
Your sense of self, safety, or belonging.
Okay.
You can address it either way you want to.
So for me, I think my sense of safety and belonging is first and foremost shaped by my family. My mother was born here, raised here. I was born here, raised here. My grandfather, born here, raised here. His father lived here, worked for the Waterworks Company. My great-great-grandfather in the early 1900s lived, worked, owned a business here, was a property owner here in the early 1900s. So being from a legacy of a black family that has been here for 4 or 5 generations has shaped my sense of safety and belonging in this community. Also being, I ain't been in a while, but growing up at St. James AME Church, Sunday school, vacation Bible school, Bible study, choir rehearsal, meetings this, meetings that, growing up in that kind of community in the 80s and 90s when the church was truly a staple of the community and an institution and a respected institution and well-attended and powerful institution in the community, have really shaped my sense of belonging. And other than that, I would say leaving Erie has had sort of ability to shape my perspective on what it means to be a member of this community, having been a member of some others, going to college in the Boston area and then living in Brooklyn, New York for almost 20 years, seeing how blackness is an expansive thing. Growing up in Erie, it seemed like blackness was kind of flat and one-dimensional. And again, this was in the 80s and 90s. We didn't have many immigrants. We didn't have much diversity. You were black or you were white, and that was it. I don't recall going to school with any Asians, any Indians. You were black or you were white, and that was it. And then I leave Erie, and I realize, oh my gosh, there's Nigerians and Ghanaians and people from a place called, I can't think of the place. I've been there. I went for a wedding, and I can't. It's in the Caribbean, near Venezuela. Starts with a C. Curacao. I had never heard of Curacao before in my whole life, and I get to college and I meet people from Curacao. I didn't know there were black people there. I didn't realize there were black people in South America, because what I saw on TV would make me believe that they were all white. And I get to school and I remember that blackness is so rich and it's so powerful and creative and expansive. And so it also, being in Brooklyn and being around so many different black people and realizing that there are black people who are wealthy. I don't mean just, I got a good job. I mean like black people who use summer as a verb and not a noun. I had never seen that before. People who go to Europe to shop for the weekend and they're black. I'm like, oh my gosh, I thought the Huxtables were fake. And I get to college and I realized that they were real. So just having those experiences has made me even more proud and more just happy and just encouraged in my blackness, and I don't feel at all downtrodden or overlooked and oppressed. Not to say that there aren't oppressive things out there, but I'm an overcomer. You might try to oppress me, but good luck is kind of my mode, and that comes again from the strength and the sense of belonging that I was given in my family and in my church home. So yeah, family and church.
Hello, I'm Marty Wachuku. I'm the lead organizer for Erie County United. I was born in Nigeria and raised in Pittsburgh, but I have spent nearly my entire adult life here in Erie County. I went to Edinburgh for 4 years and moved here officially in 2017. So I can't share the same experiences that many of my fellow panelists here can share about growing up here in Erie, but I can share my experience as someone who came of age here in Erie. And what I can say is, as someone who didn't grow up here, one of the most unique experiences I've had here is I knock doors regularly for my job. And whenever I knock on a door of someone in the Black community, they usually ask, "Did you grow up here? Who are you related to?" I can tell that Erie is a very tight-knit community where people love on each other, and I have been embraced by the community here. I'm surprised by some of the relationships I've been able to develop and how much love and openness exists here. And it makes me angry and sad to see how much disinvestment has been left for the Erie Black community. Whenever I hear there aren't people taking jobs or schools are failing, it's not for a lack of talent, it's not for a lack of brains. Every day I meet talented, charismatic, powerful people in Erie. And part of my work and part of my, I think, gift and role in this life is to bring that light out and make sure that Erie's getting the money and the resources and infrastructure that people for generations have more than deserved here. And I think my experiences here outside of the Black community have shown me that, we are often dismissed. We are often not even invited to the table, so we're not even thought to be brought to the table. And even when we are in spaces and we're told that we want to be valued, we're dismissed and belittled. And it's a hard thing to sometimes be the only person in the room, and it's another thing to be not taken seriously. And so each one of us sitting here at this panel and each one of us in this crowd speckled around know what it feels like to, what Mr. Blunt said earlier, feel like you're the representative of a whole race. We all have our different experiences. I represent being a transplant and an immigrant here. And even as an immigrant, I came here, my parents came here by choice. I'm not representative of the big African refugee population here in Erie. And so there's a lot of love amongst the Black community, but I don't often feel like that love comes from outside of the Black community for the Black community. But we're gonna keep on moving forward. We're gonna keep on growing and speaking up for ourselves and doing what we need to serve ourselves.
As a moderator, just from what I kind of summed up from what they all have said, they all have addressed the opposition that Black men and Black women face in this city. But where we rise above it is when us as Black men and women, we have a choice to either allow it to consume you or you can rise above it. And so what I have seen across this panel is 8 panelists who had a choice to make. Do I allow the opposition and racism to consume me and to hold me back, or do I rise above it? Is it easy? No, it's not. But will I sit there, and allow this to just, become my life? So let's just give it up for them once again, just for having the mindset to rise above all the opposition that comes along with being a Black man and a Black woman in Erie. One more time, y'all. All right, we're gonna move along here. I'm gonna bring it right back to Attorney Page. How does the history of segregation shape life here in Erie, PA today?
I would say The vestiges of segregation and discrimination are everywhere. You might have to look closely to see them, but they're there, and that's not just in Erie. Race was essentially baked into the cake of every system, every institution, everything in America. If you care to research it, race was there, whether it's healthcare, education, housing, banking, everywhere you look, race was a component, and it was used as a tool to attempt to oppress, disadvantage, block the advancement of Black people. At every turn, Black people have found ways to survive and in many cases to thrive. But I would say a story that always stands out to me that I think probably somebody should do like a book or a movie about. I grew up hearing about my mother growing up on West 11th Street and how that was a Black neighborhood of homeowners. And we all know that home ownership in this country is like the staple and mainstay of wealth building. And there are families who own homes, big homes, beautiful homes, multi-family homes, homes with fruit trees in the backyard, a voting block in a community where people knew each other and they could trust each other and they could depend on each other. And at some point, somebody said we're redeveloping. What do you see when you drive down West 11th Street in 2025? Parking lots, not only just parking lots, but empty parking lots. So you tore down a whole community. You eminent domained their homes. You obliterated their wealth because you were redeveloping, and you put parking lots in the place of a thriving Black community. You dispersed people. You broke up a community, families, friends, political power. And if you ask me, that by design. And if you look across the country, that's not unique to Erie, Pennsylvania. That's happened everywhere. Even having lived in New York City, if you know the story of Robert Moses and building highways through communities, cutting off throughways through Queens, through the Bronx, it was by design, and it was done on purpose. And it just makes me think, like, what would Erie be in 2025 if West 11th Street hadn't been obliterated in 1960, whenever? And no one's answered for that. There's been no repair for that. We've just all kind of moved on from that. And I think it's sad. I think it's, you know, when I hear the stories and my mom tells me about what it was like to grow up in a thriving Black community where everybody knew each other and everybody had 10 kids, 9 kids, 8 brothers and sisters back in those days when people were having large families and everybody knew each other, and your cousin or auntie would come up from the South and then their family would move up because they found out there were jobs. When I hear those stories, like, I didn't grow up like that. We were kind of like dispersed. Some family on the East Side, some family on the West Side, some here, some there. And so I think those types of policies and deliberate choices that were made we're still seeing the effects of them today, because nobody had a house to leave me. A lot of people that I meet, that I went to college with or law school with, their grandmothers were able to leave them their property. Their parents had property to leave them. And so these are the ways that these deliberate choices and policy decisions have lasting effects that are repercussions that ripple down throughout generations. And so I would say in the real estate arena in Erie, just on a personal level, that's one that I think of. But again, it's there. Education and banking. My mom also tells me stories about how it was such a big deal when she was at Strong Vincent that she made the cheerleading team because Black girls didn't get to be cheerleaders in the 1960s at Strong Vincent. And to me, I'm like, what? Like, you couldn't be a cheerleader, but that was like a big deal that a Black girl became a cheerleader, and just all the different stories that she tells me of how things were in the 60s. And, you know, some things have changed, but as we know and can see in the present day, a lot of things haven't. So we still do have work to do, and we have to, a lot of times what you see on social media, people say, oh, just get over it. That was then. Why are you still complaining? That was 1960, whenever. It's 2025. Get over it. Move on. You're pulling the race card. Why you still complaining? Nobody really wants to address how these policies and decisions that were deliberately made have lasting repercussions. We understand compound interest in money and how if you put it there in the 1960s, what it's worth in 2025. Everybody understands that. But if you beat and oppress and steal and break apart and redevelop in 1960, there's compound interest on that too. And nobody wants to address or deal with that. We just want to say move on. And I think that's, until we address it, you know, I don't want to be Miss Seeley, but till you do right by me, you know, that's real. So I'm going to pass the mic.
Mr. Blunt, then Mr. Nicholson.
I think what else is it to be said? She said it. But I wanted to say this. I want to go back to what we said about being black. Being black is like the elephant is always in the room. Wherever we go, whether I'm in the doctor's office, whether I'm at the bank, whether I'm in school, I'm wondering, am I getting a fair deal? I'm wondering, am I being treated human? Because look at what we're doing here. We're analyzing what is it like to be black. It's like being human. That's what it is. It's being human. Because we have to understand being human and not being treated like a human has an effect. It has a traumatizing effect. Like she said, our neighborhoods wiped out. Or we have to understand that in Frontier Park, our veterans wasn't allowed to take advantage of the GI Bill that built those Baldwin houses. They wasn't allowed to go out there. They wasn't allowed to move to Mill Creek. They didn't get the GI Bill to do that. And it was ingrained by the federal, it was ordained by the federal government that we moved to the projects. That was the funding. The suburbs, it was written in there by the contractors. It was redlined, is what she was saying. It was redlined. So I wonder sometimes when I go to the hospital, do I get the treatment that some of you all get? I wonder sometimes when my doctor forgets that I might get prostate cancer before anybody in here, but he doesn't recommend it because he don't know that information. But it's deadly to me. I have to wonder sometimes about, do I tell my kids how to act, my sons, how to act when they get stopped? Do you have that? I refuse to tell them to bow down to anybody. I won't do that. But that's a burden that I bear that one day might have cost their life. That's something that everybody else don't have when they walk through this room. You know, I'm proud where I hear some people are talking about how they overcome, and they did. They did. I am ecstatic at some of the progress that I've seen here. But it came at a cost. It came at a cost. Because I remember a time where, and if you're black in this room, you would hear this phrase, and you could finish it, if they were black. We have to work twice as what? All that. We had to grow up with our own black codes that I had to eliminate from him. He don't know it, but I had to make a conscious decision to build a floor and not put a ceiling there for him. And hopefully we did a good job of that. When we see Obama, everybody getting ready to go see Obama. That's one of the examples. I grew up at a time where people would say there'll never be a black president. Imagine that. This is the stuff that we have to grow with, our role, our place. And we have to eliminate that so we could proudly feel like Tiffany feels, like Nikki feels, hopefully Marshall feels. I'm proud of that feeling, but we had to eliminate something that we experienced to say, hey, you might not could go there. And one example, and I'm gonna be done with it. I had my oldest son one time. It was a club right across the street from the Bay Breeze. I think it's called the Big Bar now. They had a problem with young black teenagers going there, and they would harass them. And I would say, son, why do you even want to go down there? Don't go where you're not wanted. He said, Dad, I ain't gonna let them stop me. And I had to change myself to say, okay, no more ceilings. Go. Just be careful. But But that's something that we have to live with. And then we have to deal with this right here, where we hope something comes out of this, and we'll have other ones, where you all will be committed, because that's what we lack. We don't lack ideas, we lack commitment. Because every time something's proposed, it only lasts for a little while. We go back to Reconstruction, it worked. That's why it was stopped. Affirmative action worked. That's why it was stopped. Fair housing worked. All these things worked. DEI worked. We have a grant now that our executive, our county director, he's trying to defund it. It was working. So when we come up with remedies, when we do these things and we come up with remedies and you're not committed, this is what we face. Now, I don't want to sound like no victim. I'm sharing to you what we face. The appreciation of how I have to go to work despite seeing George Floyd and not take it out on everybody. I have to rationalize this. I have to rationalize Cello, not be mad at you, don't take it out on you, but I have to exist and function. That's a heck of a thing to do. That's a trauma we all have to live with that somebody here everybody don't have to live with. So that's my answer. Sorry to be long-winded.
I want to back up a little bit and first of all give my deepest condolence to the Woodard family. And I don't want to only stop at the Woodard family, but there's been many countless other victims of Erie's racial health crisis. I want to go back to saying, just give you a little background from where I've come from. I am the son of Linda Ann Ward and Linda Ann Reed, as we know her today. My grandfather, or my dad, Edison Nicholson Jr., I'm the third. She was talking about my last name, and I said I didn't have a choice. I'm the third. But also my grandfather, the late Reverend Sam Ward, my grandmother, Ruby Mae Ward. They also grew up on West 11th Street. And everybody know the rock star of our family, who was Sister Lou, Golden Gibby. I laugh because I'm carrying a red phone today. But I got deep roots here in Erie, Pennsylvania, and I care about it. As a young person, I remember attending Strong Vincent High School, and in '87, I walked out of Strong Vincent never to return. I remember Joyce Savacchio telling me, where are you going, young man? And then you had Miss Steele in the back asking me to get back to class. But I was telling them at the time that this isn't for me. I'm done with school. I walked out of Strong Vincent never to return to a school for 4 years. 4 years later, I went and earned my GED. It took me 3 times to get that, but I got it. And later I can remember approaching my mentor at the time, Mr. Charles Fulkerson. And I approached him, I said, Charles, I passed it. He said, so? And I looked at him, I said, what are you talking about? He said, you got to go to college now. And sure enough, I went on to Mercyhurst College at the time and earned my degree from Mercyhurst. From there, I went on to serve as the first black director of the YMCA Black Achievers Program that was located at Glenwood YMCA, which you didn't see black folks coming in and out of the Glenwood YMCA until we created the YMCA Black Achievers Program. And this young lady is a product of the YMCA Black Achievers Program. I also served on the board beforehand, and I was always, when I serve on boards or when I'm invited to the table, I always bring us. I serve on the Erie Homes board, Erie Homes for Children and Adults. When I came on the board, I didn't want to be the only black person there. I didn't want to be the only minority. I asked for 2 other black folks to serve with me. We had 3. Then after that, I told them, I said, look, you guys are here in the neighborhood, but you're not in the neighborhood. They created what they have down on 22nd and German or Holland. Right now, we have a home on 22nd and Holland. I said, you don't have enough black administrators. They went out and got a black head nurse. She became the first head nurse at Erie Homes. Then after that, I said, you need to be able to retain blacks here because they're coming in and they're leaving. There's a problem there. They went out and got Bishop Brock, and they brought the Eagle's Nest into Erie Homes. But that's because I was sitting there, and I said, look, if I'm gonna be here, I'm not gonna bring the same dish to the table, okay? You invite me to an Italian dish, I'm gonna bring you some collard greens and some chicken and some hog head cheese. I'm gonna bring all that to the table. I'm gonna bring the diversity to the table and that. And so I say that because a lot of times when we as blacks, we as black and brown people, we get invited to the table, we never ever look to bring other people in, you know, and that is a problem. We have to be diligent about making this a level playing field for everybody. I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna shut up. I never forget, I approached the city council woman at the time, and I was complaining because I had not received my $25,000 that the city of Erie had promised me through CDBG. She told me, Edison, I have to be for all the people. And I said, well, they didn't invite you to an Italian party or an Italian dinner so that you bring spaghetti and lasagna. They didn't do that. They wanted you to bring something different to the table. And that's my model. You know, when I'm looking to serve, when I'm looking to be a part of something, okay, don't ask me to come to the table if you're not asking me to bring others in that look like me.
I was feeling the fried chicken. I don't do greens or hard. All right, to Ms. Parker, what are some common myths or misunderstandings about the Black experience in Erie, PA?
Go ahead and repeat that again for me.
What are some common myths or misunderstandings about the Black experience in Erie, PA?
That is full of richness. Exactly what I think all of my colleagues have confidently and coherently expressed. I think oftentimes, whether we're talking on a national scale or right now here locally, there is this undertone, this undercurrent of poverty and such sadness of our people. And we are happy people. Trust, we not just laugh through the sake of bad times, but because we are genuinely, oh no, not my earring, we are genuinely enjoying being alive, exploring ourselves. And that's exactly what I think about growing up here in Erie, the exploration I had. as a black child, thanks to also my parents, my mom is actually here tonight. I flew her up from Montgomery, Alabama. She moved about 3 years ago. Roll Tide. Yep, I said what I said. That's real football right there. The SEC, baby. But nevertheless, I grew up with parents who, yes, they were very honest about you will encounter systemic issues as a black person navigating this society that are bigger than you could ever imagine. And here are these small but incredibly important things that you can do on an everyday basis, building a routine of survival to get through it. And at the same time, while owning that reality, they said, but don't let that stop you from being who you are, Autumn. Go ahead and find that out. So Miss Autumn, Miss Little Autumn, or they called me Nikki growing up because my middle name's Nicole. I was over here in Blasco Library, in the corners of the library, reading all the books in the world. Series of Unfortunate Events was my favorite book, and then Twilight when I got older, and I had to sneak that because my mama was like, witchcraft, you know? All the kind of things. But I was made fun of for that by both my peers of color and my white-skinned peers. They're like, what you doing reading in the corner for? That's some white stuff. I was being called an Oreo, I was being called nerdy. And it was like so disheartening when I think about that, quite frankly, and it leads me back to, you know, your question you asked earlier, Pastor Gaines, for us to talk about a sense of self and safety and belonging. And I very much grew up suffering and struggling with feeling safe to be myself, so that I could feel a sense of belonging. There was no way, no right way it felt to be black. And that is the biggest myth, is that there's a certain way to be black. Now, yes, the neck roll is included. You gonna get that. I'm sorry, that's a black thing. But it was within this city, through the diaspora of our blackness, of our rich culture, that I, again, got to build a resilient sense of self and the acceptance that came with that. And the joy. I love who I am. I mean, I'm in a relationship, I love my boyfriend, but I'd be like, I love being by myself. Go do something, you know? Or even with my mama, she'd be like, oh, my baby, look, go away. Just want to sit in peace in my skin and love it. And read my books and listen to my alternative rock music or my screamo music. My neighbor is terrified. She's absolutely terrified of the metalcore I play. But again, so much of those things about myself, I still get to tie back to the richness of blackness. We are the epicenter of, quite frankly, everything beautiful about this life. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. That includes music too, because let's talk about some of the more technical myths regarding Erie. Who do we often associate with the Battle of Lake Erie? Oliver Perry. I'm sure he didn't sound like that, but every time I walk my dog in Perry Square, I be looking at that statue and I just want to like Sparta kick it down. Because seriously, we forget about Cyrus Tiffany and Andrew Williams, who protected Perry and led them to victory on our lake. There are even sources that say that Cyrus was shielding Perry from some of the debris and damage when our boat was damaged. That should be up there. Cyrus like blocking this poor white man back, you know, like that should be the statue we see. And when I think about the word segregation, I'm a big proponent of making sure that even though we're having shared language, we're having shared definition, because that's oftentimes where miscommunication can take place. And so when I think of the word segregation, I also think about the element of it's a state of separation. It's a mindset. And within our Erie Public Schools, I left higher education. Right now, I am excited to say I'll be joining the Eagle's Nest this coming school year, teaching 7th and 8th grade literature. And I want to make sure that my students don't feel set apart, separated from the oneness of their place here, of making Erie a place-making city. We shouldn't be under some subtitle in a history book. what blacks did. Fold us into the story. We are the main character half the time. I said it. My best friend has a shirt that says main character. I should have asked for it, you know? But no, seriously, the myth is that we are not, being black is not a joyful experience. It's not something to celebrate. It's not something to brag about. We need to brag on ourselves, especially here in Erie. We are the 814, and it is a joy to build it with everyone who wants to call this place home. I just don't want to be a separate part of the story. That is the myth.
Thank you. Now, I almost cued in to mute your microphone when you said roll tide. We are Penn State, all right? Okay.
I'm gonna go leave now. No, I'm kidding.
I was about to start sweating in my head, you know. I got no hair, so y'all have seen it all. All right. Same question to Mr. Jones. What are some common myths or misunderstanding about the black experience in Erie, PA?
Sorry, I would echo the thoughts of Autumn just because on so many levels, everything she said resonated with me specifically. So you see me, young black man, tattoos, jewelry, that's just me, right? So I like I said, I'm the branch manager at Erie Bank. I was introduced at an event as such earlier this year, and a head official, I won't say who or what department, but he came up to me and he said, "You're not what I picture when they said branch manager." And I was like, well, what a branch manager look like? And you know, I think that approach and that response kind of made him back down a little bit because he wasn't expecting to get bucked back. But the reality is, my work will speak for itself. And the myth is that you need to be, you know, clean shaven and no tattoos and no jewelry, and you need to speak of a certain ilk. I'm enjoying the fact that in my current position, I'm able to be authentically me. I've worked for a few different companies, and I've been fired for being me, solely. And I mean, you know, when it happened, it's like, what was the purpose about it? Like, what did I do? I know I did nothing. I let my work speak for itself, but, you know, everything comes to light, and the person that ended up setting me to get fired, he bragged about it because he was threatened by my trajectory. All I did was work. But because I look like this and I carry myself a certain way, like you said, you need to brag about it. If you follow me on any social media, I'm going to tell you about me. I'm going to tell you about what I do, because if I don't tell you, who's going to? Like, you look at it like it's bragging, like it's cocky. That's a myth. That's a myth. It's being black here and you need to be humble. No.
All right, before I move forward, is this helping anybody so far? Is this good? Is y'all enjoying yourselves? All right, all right. Okay, let's take it to another gear. Let's take it to another gear here. And I want y'all to really, this next question, if I call on you, please, I want you to get very, very detailed. And I'm gonna start with you, Marty. Have you ever experienced or witnessed discrimination here in Erie, PA, whether in housing, education, policing, healthcare, or elsewhere?
Thank you. So, my first years here in Erie County were at Edinburgh. And during my time there, I was surrounded by Confederate flags. Whenever our Black Student Union held events and had a whiteboard outside letting people know where our event was, white students would sometimes write racial epithets for us all to see. Years ago, there's some people in this room who were working on trying to get, and they're still working on trying to get more Black educators into the Erie School District. And I was part of a press conference advocating for that. Afterwards, a local news person of esteem interviewed me and asked me, "Where are you going to find all these Black teachers?" and the assumption that there weren't black educators that can be grown here, that they could be found around the state, that they could be found around the community. And I'm going to share one last personal experience before I talk about some of the community experience I've heard. I'm someone who lives with a chronic condition, an autoimmune disease called psoriasis. And at the beginning of COVID, my medication stopped working. And I told my dermatologist at the time that this medication was no longer working, a white older man. And he just kept on telling me, it's okay, it's still working, you just keep taking it. And my condition got worse and worse and worse. And during the height of COVID, with all the anxiety of disease, I had to beg my doctor to take me seriously. Eventually, I left him and found another doctor who tried to give me treatment. And when the treatments didn't work with that doctor, he had to write a letter to my old doctor to give me the medication I deserved. And that medical racism experience was just the tip of the iceberg. I've heard experiences from recent mothers who, if not for their own advocacy or the advocacy of a family member, they would have lost a limb or lost their lives giving birth. I've heard people who have been trying to buy homes, and because of the specific zip code that they were trying to buy a home in, they couldn't get a home loan. I've heard people discriminated against trying to get housing, time and time in employment. And as someone who tries to organize and have found myself in political experiences, whether it's also because I'm a young woman, black woman, I have been belittled, I have been dismissed, I have been shushed, I've been told to wait my turn. And for some time, it made me feel like what Mr. Jones just said, that I need to just get better at being humble. And I found myself shrinking in, but now building up and building deeper relationships with my peers and elders, I realized that the way that people in power who are not black make us feel, and the way they get away with it, is what they expect us to take, and I no longer want to agree with that. With this, and apologies to the Woodard family for their loss, with this situation with Marcello, we demand justice, and I'm afraid, just based on my own experiences living here as an adult and the experiences of people I've talked to in the community, this city is preparing itself and trying to comfort us to be prepared to not get any kind of justice. And I won't have that. So I think I got lost in my thoughts. Did I answer the question? Yes, okay.
Sorry, I got tuned into what you were saying. I was really tuned in there. Marshall Blunt, same question. Have you experienced or witnessed discrimination here, whether in housing, education, policing, healthcare, or elsewhere?
One of the ways I've experienced that was through the way of actually, the irony of being here, but where I met Marty, and basically she interviewed me for an incident that happened at a women's march that I attended like years ago. I'm a photographer, so I tend to go to different events, protests, basically archive stuff so my nephews can have in the future. And I went one year, my mom made me a homemade Black Lives Matter sign, and I took it with me, and I was like one of the very few black people that were there. And basically, I was approached by a couple older white women, and they were like, so, not to offend you, which I'm like, oh great, here we go. Why aren't there more black people here? And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, do you think we operate on a hive mind? And basically, I complained about it on Facebook. I was over it. And basically, another person was like, you're lying, I had a good time, and again, shared a Martin Luther King quote afterwards. So basically, Marty saw what I went through and basically interviewed me about my experiences at the Women's March. And another incident was where I was part of the mayor's LGBTQ committee, and basically I resigned my post due to the reaction that the mayor's office did for the George Floyd protest, where basically accusing the public of lying about a young lady being assaulted on State Street. And basically, I got a long paragraph, a message from one of the mayor's associates, basically saying how I thought we were friends, basically stating that if the cop was African American, that I would agree with him, which that was kind of like, I don't care if the cop was my brother, wrong is wrong. And basically blocked them, and it's on my Facebook if you want to see it. But it was definitely, it's definitely a very narrow experience, very, like, being black in Erie is definitely being under like a microscope, and hence my anxiety now. But it's just, yeah, it's definitely unnerving to see what's happening now.
All right. If you haven't put two and two together, Marshall Blunt and Mark Blunt, father, son, okay, type of thing. And I'm going to address the same question to his father.
In the beginning, I had worked at GCAT, and I was working for the Department of Aging, and I was a caseworker. And some of our clients, Lois Bibbs was training me, and we'd go out into the county. And a lady did not want, I don't want to say her name, but the lady didn't want a black man coming to her house, and strongly said it. And Lois said, if you want these services, you're going to accept this right here. And I assured the lady it was nothing that I wanted, that you had, nothing that you have that I want, and I don't. But it was that feeling. And this wasn't, you got to, if you don't know me, I went to Jackson State University in Mississippi. Never experienced that there. But to experience that here was kind of shocking. Then later on, I decided, well, I had an opportunity to buy the subways, and I made a phone call to PNC Bank. And the lady, by hearing my accent, my dialect, or whatever you want to call it, she said, I don't know if I can help you, but did you try a minority business loan? And I said, no, I wanted to try to talk to a loan officer. She said, I don't think we can help you. I called Brenda Franklin. Brenda Franklin worked at the PNC Bank. And I said, I didn't like the treatment. All I wanted was the opportunity to go to a loan officer and see if I could buy this subways. Brenda Franklin called Ben Wiley, and this is the beginning of a relationship that I had with Ben Wiley. And the next thing I know, I meet the president of the PNC Bank, and Ben Wiley's in there, and Brenda Franklin's in there, and it wasn't getting the loan anymore, it was how we was gonna make this work. But I wasn't gonna go away, but there was many that went away from these programs because they was discouraged. And they gave up, quote unquote, hope. And I go back to saying to you, I owe because of that. Brenda didn't know me. Ben didn't. And that was the beginning of my journey here, was that discrimination right there. So yeah, we face it, some not as blatant like this. I could tell you, as I got involved in education, the acceptance of African-American dropout rates, it's right in your face. It would be a tragedy if you knew 50% of your males was dropping out of school. The ones that's going in the 8th grade now, they're not projected to finish. 50%. More would know that if they look like something else. So yeah, racism is not always the N-word. Racism is it's the subtle things, the expectations. Like they supposed to fail, like they supposed to be in jail. So we could all name these type of things. We could look at jail sentences. We can look at our current situation. We could look at the health statistics. We just didn't have high blood pressure for no reason. It's dealing with this. If you look at a Nigerian and you look at us, it's showing something there. It's dealing with this. When we start talking about test scores, and you say, well, African-American kids here, we don't do well with that. And so the kid faces the burden or the label of not being intelligent. But let me tell you something, the Nigerian has the highest scores in the world. They have the highest scores. What is that? That doesn't mean the test, it's the ego. It's not hard to figure out. If someone is not feeling loved and someone is not feeling appreciated, how can they learn if there's no value? And then I'll go to this and I'll shut up. Another one of my community advocates or community fights that we once had was jobs in the labor unions. The head of the labor union told me and Richard Connor, when we was trying to get more laborers or more people involved, don't bring any lazy ones. I'm tired of the lazy ones. This is the history. This is what we face. This is the fight. And then when we go, not only does it have that one, if I got the job, understand so many people have been turned down, the apathy has affected us. We don't apply. Why? They ain't gonna hire me. And then they'll get labeled as lazy because they don't apply, but they didn't apply because the door has been shut. One more, we'll go to my job, how people are recruited to be promoted, but never the black one. I have a friend that had to move out of town because she was the most senior person, never once looked at to be promoted, and then they call somebody within 2 years less qualified, because usually they argue the qualification. This one's overqualified for the job. The superintendent calls her down and says, hey, did you ever think about that? Did you ever think about getting this job? This one had to move to Houston now because she wanted to leave because she didn't feel appreciated. This is not just my story. Everybody in here got a story that they could tell like this. Unfortunately, I don't care what company it is, but this is a real thing for us. So that's my experience. Thank you.
All right, I want to address this next question to Attorney Page. What does those moments when you have experienced racism or discrimination here in Erie, PA, when you've witnessed those moments, what does that reveal about the systems we live in?
For me, I guess I'll say I don't feel like I've experienced times of actual like overt racism. I joke with my mom, like, I think maybe I'm on the spectrum, and if it's happening, I'm just not picking up on it. Like, you'd have to literally overtly say something for me to know, but I was born in the 70s. We didn't know about it back then, so I always say I missed out on getting a couple checks. I should have been diagnosed earlier. But so I've never felt like this person was racist to me. In my experience, it's more of a subtle, kind of understated, little, what could be perceived as slights. But I don't often feel like it's coming from a deep-seated, ooh, I hate black people kind of way. I think people are just a lot of times uninformed, and a lot of us we get stuck in our patterns. And so moving back here to Erie from New York City, where in New York City, you walk into Bronx County Courthouse, you see black lawyers, you see black judges, you see Asian judges, you see attorneys, you see half the police force is black. So it's not unusual to see me in a courtroom as not a defendant in the Bronx. But here at the Erie County Courthouse, things are different. You don't see any black judges. You don't see many black police officers. I've seen 1 or 2 or 3 around here lately. You don't see many black attorneys. So it's something out of the ordinary that people haven't been used to seeing, haven't encountered. And so the pattern recognition in Erie County was, if I see you and you're black and you're in the courtroom, you must be the what? there you go. So I'll just tell this story, and I'm not gonna say any names. I'm not trying to like put nobody under the bus or anything like that. But I think it is demonstrative of kind of the kind of unconscious biases that we have. So I didn't interpret this, or I didn't experience this as an overt, I don't like you because you're black. I clearly recognize that this is a program running in the back of the mind, in some ways in all of our minds, in the back of our minds that we don't even know is running, but we do have a responsibility to interrogate the program once we recognize that it is running. So I just moved back here. I started my new job at the firm that I was at, and my mentor, my guy, was introducing me to everyone. He was really good about taking me to everyone. Meet Nikki, she's new in our office. And he would always call me, I wasn't a partner, but he would always introduce me as, this is my partner. Nikki, she's new in our office. Like, he always really was there to support me, to co-sign for me, knowing that I was new, and well, I'm from here, but I was new as a practicing attorney here. And I always really appreciated and respected that, and knew that he was going out of his way to use his cachet or his reputation to say, I'm vouching for this person. This is my partner, Nikki. And that's something, y'all could put in your little Rolodex of things you could do, because, white people are always like, tell us what we can do to help. That's one of the things you can do. Use your social capital to help, your black and brown counterparts. But on this one particular day, he was introducing me to a judge. This person is no longer on the bench, no longer a judge, so don't be thinking like, ooh, I wonder if it's none of the people who are there. Goes to judge's chambers, and I'm in a full suit, I'm new, I got my briefcase. In my opinion, I'm looking like me, and so we open the door, and he's like, hi, judge, I want to introduce you to, and before he could get the next sentence out, the then judge says, how dare you bring a defendant to my office? You know better than that. Defendants are not allowed to come to judge's chambers. And my mentor was like, dumbstruck, like could not believe it. There was another person in the room, not gonna say nothing who that person is. They might be in the room now, but I'm not gonna say nothing. They saw it too, and it was like shocked. Like everyone in the room was shocked, and I'm standing there because this is not the first time that I've experienced this. I know where this is going. Everyone is shocked, and so then my mentor has to say, actually, Judge, I want to introduce you to Attorney Nikki Page, former Assistant District Attorney in the Bronx County District Attorney's Office, former Senior Prosecutor at the New York City Civilian Complaint Review Board, current partner, and like, as soon as the information starts coming out, the judge, he's instantly, like I could tell, like in his heart, he was so disappointed in himself. He was mortified. He could not believe that the program, he didn't recognize that the program was running in the back of his head. He was extremely apologetic for like the 2 months he was still there. After that, every time he saw me, it was like he was apologizing. I was almost like disappointed that he left the bench, because I felt like I could have got anything I wanted for my clients out of him after that. But I did not experience that as an overt, like, I have a problem with black people. That's not what it was. And often that's not what it is. It's this, in his experience, in Erie County, he didn't see a black woman attorney. So the program, his pattern recognition was saying, I don't see the actual woman in a suit in a briefcase standing in front of me, I see black. And the code in the program running in the back of my brain that is unconscious or subconscious is black defendant, because that's what I see all day, every day, for however many years I've been on the bench. So I understand it, but we're not gonna excuse it though. Now that you know it's there, you have to interrogate the program that's running in the back of your brain. Where else is this showing up? If I'm doing this to you when you walk in the room, when else is this happening? I need to check myself. And that's something like, it happens a lot. Even when I was in New York, and New York is more diverse, you would be standing in the courtroom in the well, as they call it, meaning like you're inside the part where the action is happening, and people would say, are you the stenographer? Nope. Are you the court clerk? Nope. Are you the judge's secretary? No. It's like they would reach for every other, I'm not the window washer either. I am Assistant District Attorney Page. And then when you would say it, it's like a light bulb would go off and people would be instantly embarrassed, mortified, apologetic, like, oh my gosh, well, I didn't mean. Well, what did you mean? And then no one has an answer because we all know the answer. The answer is your program was running, and to you, I couldn't be anything other than the help. I could be the dishwasher, the secretary, the help, but attorney would never be top of mind. And so these are the ways in which I personally have experienced, I wouldn't say discrimination, because it never, never stopped me from doing what I'm gonna do. It never, like, I wasn't at home crying about it or anything. But it just reveals the ways in which our experiences, and if we are only having one experience and we haven't been exposed to certain things, how it can show up. Is it showing up when you're reviewing the mortgage application and you see a certain name? Is it showing up when you're reviewing a college application and a certain box is checked? Is it showing up just if you're working the drive-thru and a certain type of person comes through? Is it showing up? Are you assuming this person is a bad tipper? What assumptions are you making about a person just because when you see them, you don't see the person, you see black? And I think, again, this person was super apologetic. He's a good person. He's a good man. I am not harboring any ill will toward him. He punished himself more than I could ever punish him after that incident happened. I just think I only tell the story because I think it's illustrative of the kind of insidious way that race could be working and you don't even know that it's working. So, thanks.
All right, this next question, I'm going to start and asking Marty, because she is not born in Erie, PA, but has spent her adult life in Erie, PA. So I think this question is very fitting to you. Where do you find support, or where did you find support, connection, or joy in Erie's black community?
I think I can safely say some of the first relationships that I built here was with a Black Erie institution. It was the Horton family. Both Gary and Andre have been some of the greatest coaches, cheerleaders, mentors that I have ever experienced. I think a week or two ago, I took a walk with Andre on the Lower West Side, and I had heard about New Jerusalem. I've read the history of New Jerusalem, but walking around with him and hearing his stories of so-and-so used to live over here. I remember where there was a pool bar over here. I remember when this was over here. Building a relationship with them and some other Black leaders and family institutions in this town has really made me feel like it's gonna sound really cocky, but I'm called to Erie to partake in like making sure that the future of Black Erie is shored up, that the future that was lost is not remembered. And then recently, Erie County United has moved its offices into the Booker T. Washington Center, and the love and community I have felt there from, and I'm gonna name them even if they're not here, Mr. Hawk, Miss Priscilla, Mr. Chantel Hilliard, Mr. Tim. Booker T. Washington is such a home, and I don't know what's going on with the funding, but I want to see more resources go into that center. Their gym needs repaired. Their bathrooms need repaired. Their floor needs repaired. There's a pool in the back that maybe needs repaired. And then I also want to speak to my sisters here in Erie, people like Raven and Autumn and others. We all know how tough it is to live here in Erie, and oftentimes when we're not amongst ourselves, the community will make us feel like we're crazy, like we're not experiencing or witnessing the things that we're witnessing, whether it's verbally to your face or even online, seeing comments and reactions to the things that affect us. I really feel loved and graced when I'm amongst us. And that's not to say that that wasn't happening at home in Pittsburgh, but I came of age here. And I know how protective and rich and deep and prideful Black Erie is, so I'm really appreciative of all the open arms I've ever received here. Yeah.
I love what she said. She said, I was called to Erie, PA. And you have a lot of people who leave Erie, PA, or try to run from it, but she embraced our city. So we thank you for just coming here and embracing us, and we embrace you as well. All right, this next question is for Mr. Nicholson. What keeps you hopeful as a black man here in Erie, PA?
One of the things that keep me hopeful is seeing the young people that are coming behind me and making a difference here in Erie, Pennsylvania. I see Jasmine sitting here, City Council. I see Tiffany sitting here, this young lady who I was in a meeting, a board meeting, and they were talking her up, telling me that I need to meet her, and all of a sudden, boom. But it's the young people that are coming up behind us. And I say that because we need to get on board with them and help them become the next leaders in this community. And the other folks need to step aside and mentor these young people, and that because these are the next. They're going to be the next. And so that's very hopeful. I do want to speak on something that I shared this morning in our interview, the pain that I experienced as a young man coming up. I never forget the moment, and if you just go with me for a minute, and I'm going to use some real names because I want you guys to feel this. Myself and two of my closest friends at the time, Franklin Frith and Bobby Hammond, all three of us were in a vehicle coming up Chestnut Street. And we happened to notice a police officer tailing us. And we decided to play a game. We're young. And so we waited till the light turned yellow. And right before it turned red, so we flew past the yellow light and made that left-hand turn. And as we were coming down towards Chestnut Street, there was 8 police cars waiting for us. And they all had shotguns. And we were sitting there like in awe, like, whoa, what's going on? Just because we ran a yellow light? They got on the bullhorn and said, put your hands up in the air. And we all put our hands up in the air like, whoa. And then they told us to take our right hand, cross it over, and open the door. And so we did that. We got out of the car, stood next to the car. They told us to turn around, put our hands on the car and everything. They came up and they searched us and everything, asked a friend of mine to go back in the car to get registration and insurance information. And then after all that, the guy said, on 4th and Cherry, there was a vehicle with black men in it that shot into a home. And the mother was in there and a child. You can understand that, can't you? And he pat me on the shoulder. Wow. Yeah, I can understand it. That's what's happening here today. We have to understand. We have to understand that you made a big mistake. And today, there's a man in the grave, in the ground today, because somebody perhaps made a mistake. George Floyd, you remember that? Somebody made a mistake. And we have to deal with that each and every day. those types of mistakes just because of our skin. When I was in college, I'll never forget, I wrote a paper that called Profiling the Images of My Blackness. Profiling the images of my blackness. And that's the experience that we've been going throughout. You know, and I said this too. This is one of the things that I've always kind of just beefed with myself, because we need a program that deals with, you know, I was talking to Shantae. She has a program that deals with, Shantae William. She has a program that deals with women, young ladies. We need a program that deals strictly with black men here in Erie, Pennsylvania. And it needs to be on a one-track road, just going as fast as possible. We need black men. We need to capture their attention, other than us turning on the TV and we're seeing them in a police car or in prison. Black men are growing each and every day more extinct. So we need to really zero in on black males in this community. And so,
All right, thank you. All right. This next question that I'm getting ready to address is addressing the moment we are in right now. And that current moment is the homicide of Marcello Woodard. Now, before I ask a particular question, I just want to just bring some type of insight to some of you all who may be from the outside looking in, all right? Marcello was attending my church services on Sunday morning. This was a man that was literally trying his best to change. And I've been meeting with the family personally, father, the mother. The family asked me to eulogize the funeral, which I did. So I've been having a lot of one-on-one with the family. I've been working with the DA, chief of police in this matter since the situation happened. I've been on the ground along with several other community leaders as well. But I want you all to just get a grasp from the outside looking in. Where the family is truly hurting at is the response. The lack of quietness. And not only that, just a response from certain political figures in the city who didn't even pick up the phone and say, we are sending you our condolences. Something just as simple as that can just at least show that you at least somewhat care. But the response that has been taking place in the silentness, the comments, well, he was a drug dealer, as if just because someone's a drug dealer, they deserve to be killed. No. And yes, the community, the black community, is very, very upset right now. But I want you all to focus on, not entirely focus on, but think of the mother and the father's pain. What if that was your phone that rang, white or black, and said that your child was just shot and killed by a probation officer? If it was a police officer, either way it go. They were just killed unarmed by an officer, a law enforcement officer. Nobody's child in here is perfect, but how would you feel? He has an oldest son, Malachi. who's attending Marshall University, getting ready to graduate with 2 college degrees. He's going into his senior year, and he has to go into that senior year in the fall, struggling to finish the year because he just had to lay his father to rest due to, I don't want to call it a mistake, but due to the unfortunate event. He has a daughter, Makai, who's getting ready to graduate from high school and heading to college, who's getting ready to cross that stage without her father. And you all know who have seen a child walk across that stage, whether it's middle school, I'm gonna start back, kindergarten, we be proud, middle school, we're proud, high school, we're proud, college, we're elated. So you can imagine the sense of proudness that the father, Marcello, was feeling, knowing that he's getting ready to have 2 children, one walking across the stage, high school, one getting ready to walk across the stage and attain 2 degrees. He also has a 7-year-old son that's still trying to put the pieces together. Why is everybody wearing Justin Facello's shirts? Why is everyone always chanting my father's name? What is going on? I know my father's gone. Then you have a community who is hurting because we have experienced discrimination on so many levels from law enforcement. That's something that we didn't think that would happen here in the city of Erie has came knocking at our door. And it's been treated as if it's nothing. It's being treated as if it's being swept under the rug. Yes, we do not have all the facts. Yes, we do not have all the information. Yes, there's a thorough investigation being taken place, but I don't want you all to ignore the pain of this family and the pain of the community. So as we move forward, I ask you all to continue to pray for this family and to pray for our community. Because one thing that I'm praying for, that something is done soon. Because community leaders, pastors, and I'm going to say this, the OGs from the neighborhood, they can only hold those back, but for so long, before it's almost like releasing the hounds. So this is the state I want you all to think of, or just pay attention, the hurt and the pain behind what is going on right now and how this process, and they're asking us to trust the process. And it's kind of hard when you know the DA and other law enforcement, they work together hand in hand. So, with the first question that I have dealing with this moment is, and I'm gonna bring this to Mr. Blunt Mark, what does accountability look like from individuals, institutions, and leaders who commit an action such as this?
First of all, I work in corrections. Law enforcement needs to admit when it's wrong. Start there. Even if it is, someone said it was a mistake, this is not policy. Somebody should have let go. Was it that real that some shots was fired? Parole needs to step up and say, before the politics, before the whatever, respect that family, admit what it's supposed to do instead of rally as a gang and they're taking the no snitch codes or the blue code and they're rallying around that. Because that's the culture. I'm gonna support my office. The officer will write the report. To me, it's plain and simple. If that report don't match what that ring shows, right there is the violation. If that report is not correct and the partner validated that the partner, regardless of if he's shot, he's a conspirer. So it looks like there's not a respect of not only of our intelligence, but our humanity in this situation. As you said, they even call a family and say, rest assured, we're doing this. It's none of that. It's politics. You're hearing stuff like, well, there's unions involved, be patient, or whatever. And let me say this, and I don't advocate domestic violence or a DUI, but they do that if that officer was pulled over with that. This is a murder. Or would they say, no, we're not going to charge you with a DUI. We're not going to do this with domestic. You're not going to get a PFA. We're going to send you, just don't worry about it. The union might not like that. No, it's absurd. So to act this way in the manner that they're acting is not logical. But as someone said here, it's just the way it's been. And now we're faced with it again. This is not the first time. Brother Johnson was killed downtown. He was strangled by the Erie PD. He was strangled. The judge ruled that not only was it a strangulation, he was high on coke. They tried to say, Dave Chappelle say, sprinkle a little crack on it. The man was murdered by the EPD. So this is not something new. We've had assaults. We've had this. This is not my shots at the Erie PD. These are real cases. These are real cases. All we ask for is justice and something logical. This man has children and he has parents. And we all feel kinship. Where they say we divided, no, I don't know we divided because we all felt that. I don't know the man, but I know the man. So what does it look like? It looks like a DA should say something more than what that DA is saying. It looks like officers should be saying, that's not policy. Something's not right. It don't pass the muster. Why was you messing with this guy with 2 weeks left? Why did you search the house? All these questions is there because we're in real time now. We have social media, and it's taking on a life of its own, even being responsible to control a narrative. They should say something. But it's not. This was on Facebook Live almost from the moment that it was there. And we heard. We went from 5 shots to 3. We saw a dragon. The video I saw, I didn't even see the car move. I don't know what I'm looking at. So this is what I'm saying. A responsible DA would acknowledge that, not go to a closed-door meeting and say whatever. They have to give people like yourself or something else to work with if you want us to go out into the community. And if you want peace, if you want that, you got to give me something way better than what you're giving me. Way better than what you're giving me. So that's what that looks like.
All right, I definitely have to bring this question to the attorney here on the panel. Attorney Page, what does accountability look like in this situation?
Well, I said I ain't saying nothing else about this situation, but I guess this will be my final thoughts on the situation. Accountability, I hesitate to speak specifically about this specific instance because as an attorney, my training teaches me that I do have to wait until I know all the facts. Now, I do know what I saw on Facebook. I do know what I feel. I do know what it seemed like. And it don't seem all 100% right to me based on the limited information that I have, but I also know that I don't have all the information. And it's been my experience that I've had cases where things seem a certain way and I have a feeling a certain way, but upon further review, when something else comes in, things can be different. Now, I don't know if that's gonna happen in this case or not, but professionally as an attorney, I can't come to a conclusion or a judgment at this time. But in terms of accountability, I'm all about prevention. And so in my work with the Civilian Complaint Review Board in New York City, which obviously New York City is completely different, NYPD is notorious, 44,000 police officers, 200 and something precincts. It's a behemoth. But what the patterns, we talked about pattern recognition earlier, the patterns that I did see in working with police oversight and investigating and prosecuting police misconduct in New York City is that whenever there was an issue that had to do with the use of force, there were always warning signs ahead of the time. There were always red flags. There was always a checkered background. It was never just like this just randomly happened one day. It was always someone who had been moved from precinct to precinct to precinct to precinct. It was never a shock. Everybody knew that one day this was gonna happen with this officer. And in my experience, if people are gonna be honest, it was always other officers who never wanted to work with that officer. But nobody feels like they can say anything because, like you said, it's a culture. You don't wanna be difficult, but nobody wants to work with Officer Smith. Because everybody knows he's a hothead, everybody knows I'm gonna get jammed up. If I have to ride with him today, it's gonna be a problem. I'm gonna end up on the news because we all know this man is crazy. He's treating being a law enforcement officer like a Grand Theft Auto video game. Like he's living out some type of fantasy as a law enforcement officer. That is what we would see in our oversight of people who got to the point of a physical force violation. Now, because of personalities, everybody can make a mistake, everybody can say an off-the-cuff comment, everybody can say something rude that would lead to a complaint with the civilian. But when it came to use of force, it was always someone who they started doing this and it moved on to that and it didn't get checked or stopped there, so now they're doing it. It worked its way up to uses of force. And they used force here and then they didn't get fired and they got moved over here. So for me, accountability is in law enforcement in general, not just this specific instance. And again, I know that this was parole, this is not particularly EPD, but just in law enforcement in general, you gotta start holding people accountable. That's accountability. We gotta stop making excuses and moving things around. If this person is not suited to work in law enforcement, they shouldn't be working in law enforcement. Period. If you are afraid of or uncomfortable with black people, you shouldn't be policing in black communities. You shouldn't be paroling in black communities. And I talked earlier about that program that's running in the back of the head. That's running in the back of the head of police officers and parole officers too. And to a certain extent, we've all been programmed. You've watched 35, 40 years of TV shows where the black guy's always the bad guy. The black guy's always got a gun. The black guy's always a drug dealer. It's TV programming. It's a television program. We've all been programmed. So if you're letting that program run and you're not interrogating it and you are not comfortable with black people, you're scared of them, you think they're always got a gun, and if you see a black person turn a corner, you probably shouldn't be a police officer, and certainly you shouldn't be a police officer on the east side, East 20, whatever, or a parole officer or whatever law enforcement officer. So I think we have to be, I understand unions have a place. I'm from a union family. But at a certain point, it comes to a point where you have to, this is becoming a problem for the entire community. It's making it difficult for the parole officers who are good, for the police officers who are good. It's making it extremely difficult for them to do their job because you won't get rid of the bad apple. Like, for me, accountability is like, where else can you have a job where there's been 10 different lawsuits filed against you and you still got a job? And I'm not talking about this particular person, I'm just saying in general, in law enforcement, in New York City, we would find that like 85% of the lawsuits are coming from the same 20 officers. The city's paid out millions, multiple millions of dollars in lawsuits for these same 20 people. Why are they still here? Why can't we fire them? So accountability starts with, we have to just make up our minds. Some people just gotta go. Find another place of employment. What are we doing with psychological evaluations? And just because you passed it 15 years ago, when's the last time you had one? It's a high-stress job. You've seen a lot. You've experienced a lot. Law enforcement officers have trauma too. I'm just sitting in my office looking at crime scene photos, and I'm choked up just looking at the photo. You saw that in real life. You haven't gotten any mental health care. You haven't had a reevaluation of your mental health. Just because you passed it in 1988, we still just think you're cool? And you've worked how many homicide cases or assault cases? How often are we getting this a reevaluation of your mental health to be issued a government weapon and the power to exercise authority over people with that weapon? So I just think there needs to be, again, I know we always talk about training, but I think we need to make up our mind that sometimes I get you in a union and whatever, and you have a protected job, but protection of the people needs to come before your protection of your job. You gotta go. That's it.
All right, real quick. Okay, before I,
Pastor Gaines, really quickly, can I ask the audience to do something?
okay.
Okay. If you feel comfortable doing this, can you please break out your cell phone? And I would like you to put this phone number in your phone. 814 453-2515. That is State Senator Dan Laughlin's Erie site phone number. I would like each of you to take some time, perhaps once a day, because he's been quite active on Facebook, so I know he's on social media. I know he's active. He's been celebrating all of the recent bills he's been able to pass on behalf of the state, specifically the hunting law, so people can rest as they go off to kill, and I'd like us to rest so we can live. And so please give him a call and inquire about the current status of House Bill 1278. What accountability, looks like is not putting the onus on Black people to provide evidence of their murder. We are depending on ring cams to get insight as to what to happen. And District Attorney Page, please go ahead and correct us if I'm wrong, but that is secondary evidence, that's not primary. Primary should have been the camera the state parole agent should have been wearing, because that parole officer was also armed, so they had jurisdiction within our city to approach their parolee. Now, mind you, a state parole agent's job is supervisory. That was not supervision that night, that was an execution. And so I would like State Senator to enact the law that Governor Shapiro signed. Why wasn't that enacted? Why aren't our state parole agents wearing cameras? We don't have that primary evidence at all to understand what actually took place that night. And so please give this man a call, inquire about the status of that House Bill 1278, and hold those folks who are being elected, being held responsible at our expense to take ownership by having evidence-driven insight to what happened to this man. We don't know the details because we don't have the evidence, and that's for a reason.
Pastor Gaines, I just want to say something real quick, or actually it's a question. For the past 17 years, we've been fighting for what is called a civilian review board. We've brought forth, this is first initially brought forth in 2003 by Rick Filippi, proposed a civilian oversight committee. In 2009, City Councilwoman Ruby Jenkins' husband proposed a civilian review board. In 2017, City Councilwoman Sonia Arrington called for a civilian review board. In 2020, 7 members of City Council, Liz Allen, David Brennan, Michael Keyes, and Kathy Schaaf, voiced support for a Citizens Review Board. Why don't we have a Citizens Review Board? They actually, I don't know if he was hired or what, but Dr. Paris Baker came in and gave them the findings, gave them the reason for the season. And they just took his message, his whatever, and just swept it under the rug. Nobody did anything with it. So this man put all his hard work into developing why we should have a civilian review board. They entertained it and then swept it under the rug. So for the past 17 years, we've been at the begging call of, why don't we have a civilian review board? And I see Jazz here now, you know, and the candidate for mayor, Daria, was here. I don't know if she's still here, but if she's still here, this is what we need to take to her. This is called action. All this talking and stuff we're doing. I was a kid, and I never forget the Irma Lindsays and and everybody used to pack in my house because my dad used to be having these meetings and stuff in our house. They were talking about the same stuff. This is 40-some years ago. The same stuff. And I'm telling you, a civilian review board would address some of these issues.
For those of you, there was a very, very intense city hall meeting last night, and what you just talked about, the civilian review board, that question, what you just asked verbatim, was directed at the mayor numerous times last night.
Yep.
And he was also confronted with, you promised us this,
He dropped the ball.
and you never did it. So it was definitely mentioned and brought up last night that the mayor did not, because I believe somebody even mentioned that he actually, that was a big part of his campaign the second term.
Yes.
To end racism, and
Yes.
he has not done nothing to end racism here in Erie, Pennsylvania. All right, I want to ask, okay, now panelists, all right, due to the time, I want you, now, I won't probably be able to get through all these questions, I'm gonna try to get through a lot of them, but panelists, if you could, just keep your answer 1 to 2 minutes so we can try and get to as most of these as we can, because the time step at the end is at 7:45, and I believe we're at 7:24 right now. But this is a very good question, and it reads as, is Erie ready for a black mayor? And if not, what must change for that to happen? Any one of you can take it. Panelists, the question for you all.
We know. We're marinating.
Erie is prime for a black mayor. Erie is prime for a black mayor. But we have to do some things in order to make that happen. And in order to make that happen, we have to work collaboratively together to make that happen. We can't be onus or somebody over here saying this and somebody over here saying, somebody up there saying this. We have to come together and we have to make this happen. I've always told people there's not enough of us to be spread it out, to be fragmented.
Yeah.
We have to come together in order to make this happen. And then we have to drag some other folks to the table. But in order for those folks to come to the table, we got to be at the table first in that. And so, again, back to what I was saying earlier, our young people that are coming up behind us in that, they're prime to be the next mayor of Erie, Pennsylvania. I know this young lady sitting right here. Man, just sitting on this panel, you know, Miss Nikki Page, man, I mean, I'm just delighted to be here and to hear you speak. I mean, it's just marvelous. I love to see young people coming up and taking on the mantle of leadership in that. And so, but again, I think we have to come together collaboratively to make that happen. Yes, Erie is ready for a black mayor.
Anyone else wants to respond to that?
I agree with everything Mr. Nicholson just said. I think we're primed to have a black mayor, and I think we need a black mayor yesterday. But I think watching what happened to Mayor Egani in Pittsburgh just get unseated due to white supremacy, and knowing that Mayor Jamie Kinder down in Meeville's up for the fight to keep her seat, I think Erie's ready for a black mayor, but it's going to take a lot for us, even if we got that mayor elected, to retain them and make sure that our values and interests are maintained. I think we can do it, but it's going to take a lot for us to maintain them and for them to fight for our interests.
All right, this question was asked specifically for Edison and Mark Blunt. How can the Human Relations Commission work to promote economic justice and opportunity in Erie, PA?
By having real conversations with the bank and the community. And in doing that, we gotta want to do that. See, we can have all the questions and all the ideas, but we gotta have the will to have that conversation and the will and the means to carry that out. And a lot of times we don't have the resources to make that happen because we'll get chopped off. We don't have a friend in the executive, the county executive. We don't have a friend there. We're battling that. We're still trying to function at this level, and we're being undercut. And you can look throughout the country right now, the attitudes that are out there. But yes, we can meet with the banks, and we can meet with the needs of our community, or to assess what is the needs, because our goals, whoever we're trying to help, should direct us on how our methodology should be. Because I don't want to put the cart before the horse. I don't like doing that. I want to assess what does our entrepreneurs need. It could be financial literacy. It could be, I mean, like whatever role we have to play, we have to be able and willing to engage with the community. And under the new director that we have, I'm willing and she's willing, and I think you'll see subtle changes. But those aren't panaceas, though. Erie didn't get this way overnight, and it won't change overnight. We have to be committed, and I can tell you that the people that I've served with, we're committed, and we'll look at that, and we'll try to address that along with other agencies that's within the county.
I just wrote this particular post on Facebook the other day. I put a message on here: limited resources, limited information is limited power, which equals limited access. In order for we to build economic access here in Erie, Pennsylvania, everybody has to be at the table. Everybody has to be given a fair shake. And that is not happening here in Erie, Pennsylvania. And I've seen it too often. You know, as a young black man, you know, coming up and trying to make something happen in this community. I never forget. I was at the YMCA one time, and there was a lady there stated, I guess she knew the black young man that came in, and she said, "Wow, you know," somebody said, "Wow, he's gotten a tan." And the other black lady said, "I didn't know black people get a tan." And I just looked at her. It's like, whoa, wow. She said she didn't know black people get a tan. You know, but this is the same, this is the program in back of people's minds that prevent them from inviting us to the table. We always have to be on the bullhorn trying to get a piece of the pie. Why is that? You know, we should be at in order for Erie, like the analogy I gave the other day, there could be a person over here that is in the dark, the lights are off, and he's saying, "Gosh, I can't see." But he happened to notice that there's somebody over there on the light switch. And he says, "Okay, let me go over here and get Johnny off the light switch so that I can see." He gets Johnny off the light switch. Guess what? He can now see. The lights are on. But at the same time, Johnny see as well. So both of y'all benefit. And all I'm saying is that needs to happen here in Erie, PA. We need to understand that if you get him together, we all see.
Thank you. and I am a witness that black people do get tans. Last year I went to Jamaica, and I'm going back again this year in late August. And every time I go to Jamaica, I come back. I'm already dark skin, but I come back purple, and my skin peels as well. So yeah, it does happen. All right. And we do get sunburned as well too. All right. This is a good question right here, and I like this question. It says, what can I do as a white community member in my day-to-day life to help the people of color feel safer in our city? Anyone of you all can take it.
Go ahead. Let's go.
Just listen to our voices. Don't try to overtalk people that go through the experiences that we go through, because it could be very irritating. I've been in that position before where I've had an issue with many people in the community that try to overtalk me, and it's very invalidating. But at the same time, you just like move on from them. But at the same time, it's just like listen to our voices, and also make sure you share any information that they give you, and also just I don't know. It's just just listen to us.
I was just going to say, conversations like these, if you look around the room, majority of people in here were not black. So, conversations like these, when you guys are openly, yearning for the information and attempting to learn so that you can help and be an ally and, be someone that your community or the other community, our community, can lean on. I went to Cathedral Prep for high school. I graduated from Strom Vincent. So the majority of the time I was in high school, we had a group. There was only 5 black kids in my class. We called ourselves B5. And, the reality was we just had to stick together. But I have so many friends that I went to high school with that are allies that, they know our community. They're intertwined with our community, and they're active allies to, be a person of interest, a person of help. So I think conversations like this helps, and we should continue to do such.
Wanted to thank some coalition partners. Tonight there was a protest scheduled at the same time as this event, and some of the people in the crowd here decided to cancel or postpone that event to be here. Oftentimes when we see political actions or rallies, white people, you show up for each other. You draw out big crowds, you rally around your interests. I ask, when it comes to our political interests, especially when it comes to things like this case with Marcello, you show up and you use your white privilege to amplify our voices. Plan with us, strategize with us, be at the table with us. I'm gonna be blunt. Sometimes you need to decenter yourselves and put us at the center. We need you.
And I just want to say, last night at the City Hall meeting, there was a very good deal of white members of our community who showed up in the fight for justice for Marcello Woodard. And that was greatly, greatly appreciated by the Erie black community, that some of you all are standing with us and understand our pain and understanding how we feel and how we want justice. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, I'm going to address this to, excuse me, do any of the women on here, do any of you have sons? Do you have sons? All right, I'm going to address this to Mr. Blunt, and I'm going to address this to Mr. Jones. All right, the reason why I want to address this to them, because this question, I have to have this conversation. I have a 2.5-year-old son. This question, I'm gonna have to have this conversation with him very soon, when he's able to grasp what goes on here in society. And this next question is, what is the protocol for a black man when he's pulled over by law enforcement?
I've always said this. I want my sons, and I've tried to raise them to be respectful of all people, not just law enforcement or whatever. So I ask them to be themselves. So I'm not going through the be scared. I just can't. That's not what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna act like, be a man. Be a man, be respectful. If they ask for your driver's license, give your driver's license. If they ask for your insurance, give your insurance. There's no need for back and forth. And if he acts aggressive, remain silent. That's accordingly. But no, I'm not doing a program or a training that he can't act any way different than any other man or woman stopped by a police officer. I'm not gonna raise my kids to be scared of the police. I'm not. I'm gonna tell them to act accordingly, but that's with any authority. But that doesn't mean be submissive. That doesn't make you any less of a man. But if they stop you, just follow that direction and move on. Give me the ticket and move on. You know, that's what my suggestion is.
Yeah, Mr. Blunt has been a father for much longer than I have, but I mean, I'm approaching that with my oldest, he'll be 17. So that is a conversation we're gonna have to have. That wasn't a conversation that I had with my father. It wasn't a forethought to say, hey, you know, when you get pulled over, because you're gonna. It wasn't if you get pulled over, it's when you get pulled over, this is how you act. So that is something that is gonna be something that happens with me, because I remember my first run-in with the police. I was 9 years old. I was at a basketball court. I was at Columbus Park, and I just got a new bike. I just got it. My parents got it for my birthday. And as we're just dribbling, shooting around, we see a cop car pull up. I think nothing of it. Cop gets out of the car. I think nothing of it. He comes onto the court. Now I'm like, why is he on the court? I've never seen it happen. And he comes over, and he's looking at my bike. And he's like, whose bike is this? I was like, oh, that's mine. And he was like, oh, where'd you get it? I said, I just got it for my birthday. He said, did you really? I was like, yeah. He's like, well, come over to the car, let's talk about it. So he takes me over to his cop car. And he's like, I'm gonna put these handcuffs on you. And he put me in the back. So I'm 36 years old. I've never been arrested in my life. I've never spent the night in a holding cell, anything. And you know what's crazy? I talked about this before tonight, is oftentimes, even though I'm qualified, I have to qualify myself in every room, whether it's a white room or a black room, and I can explain, meaning that I had to just lean that. I've never had a record. I've never been to jail. That is what I needed to qualify myself for people to understand that I'm not someone that should be of a threat. Even in my own community, it's like, hey, I'm gonna help you here, and I'm not getting anything out of this, because if they think I'm getting something, oftentimes they think that's the only reason I'm willing to help. So I said that to say, I had to provide proof that this was my bike. This is my first run-in with the police. I sat in the back of the car. A girl I knew was at the park. She ran to her house, and this is before cell phones. This is before social media. She called luckily, she is a friend of mine, and she knew my house phone. She called my parents. My dad flew down with the receipt, and that's the reason he kind of let me out of the car. But again, I'm confused. I've done nothing wrong. I'm 9 years old, and I'm sitting in the back of a cop car for a brand new bike that I'm telling you is mine, and I had to provide proof for you to believe me. So it is going to be a conversation I have with my son. I don't want him to be afraid of police. I'm not afraid of the police, and it's going along the lines of how I'm already raising my sons to be respectful and respect authority, right? That doesn't make you less of a man because you are following orders. At the same time, not be combative. There's ways to approach this thing, and it is sad that we have to set this aside as a topic, but that's the reality, and I will have that conversation with my kids.
Thank you. I just want to say something. We had, about 2 weeks ago, on a Saturday, we had a meeting with the DA and the chief of police. And the chief of police, he's been a cop, I want to say, ever since the late 80s. He's been around for over 30 plus years, he told us. And he openly admitted, and this goes back to, I believe, Attorney Page said, you gotta get rid of bad apples. He openly admitted in the 80s when he started, you have so many racist cops on the force. And what also ignites and angers black people and people of color, Hispanics as well, is when we hear the comment, there is no racism here in Erie. There is no racism, there's no discrimination. That angers people of color so much. But when to hear the chief, and then he also admitted this too, he admitted that he still got some bad apples. But somebody also admitted you have a thing called a union. And that union is a fraternal order of police. I'm a member of a fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And when I pledged that fraternity, it was embedded in us that you stand by your brother, you cover your brother, right or wrong. So this fraternal order, this brotherhood is also within our law enforcement. So when he said it, I'm thinking like, why haven't you got rid of the ones that you know right now on your force is racist? But then he kind of swiveled it back and said, well, we get a new culture of white police officers who are younger, listen to rap music, and things like that. Wow. No, I'm dead serious. He said they listen to different kind of music. We know what he was talking about. All right? So, y'all, these stories to someone who's never seen or experienced racism or discrimination by law enforcement, these stories may seem absurd. This can't happen. But when the very chief of our police said this culture of racism has been on the force from the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, and currently right now, that was traumatizing what he went through at the age of, I can only imagine. So these stories you're hearing are real. I have some of my own, but that's not my, I'm gonna let them, be. But these stories are real, and I could not go any further without allowing Mr. Nicholson, because he is a father, he has sons. I cannot go any further without allowing him to share the conversation he has had with his sons as well.
All right. The George Floyd protests that occurred here in Erie, Pennsylvania a while back, my son decided to venture into the protests. And him and his friends took it a little bit too much or too much forward. And I'm a father, and I turned my television on, and his picture is posted on the television. He was accused of shooting a Molly cocktail at a police officer during the protests. Wow. I couldn't believe it. That's my son. He's posted all over the news. And so I had to deal with that, and I told him where he was wrong. So I did address the issue with him and told him, what you did was wrong, son. And he's learned a valuable lesson, because today he's even on witnessing this incident with Cello. He has a federal probation officer and that. And so I'm telling him, like, look, this could be you, so take care of yourself out there. Don't do anything stupid and that. And so that's the conversation that I have to have with my son. Even though he's 30-some years old now, I still have to have that conversation with him, because any minute he could do something stupid and get himself in a bind and that. But that's the conversation, not only me, but every black man that has a son has to have these types of conversations with your children. and address the issue. When you're stopped by a police officer, here's what you do. I've taken my registration and my license, my insurance information. I've taken it out of the glove compartment and I put it up on top of the visor because I'm not reaching for my information and that. So I put it right here where it's reachable and I can obtain it and give it to the police officer and that. The other thing I want to say real quick is black people, brown people, the incident over there in Meadville and that. We should be just as upset.
Yep.
Even though this was a white male, we should still be equally upset as to what has happened. And that was a gruesome act of excessive force by the Meadville Police Department. And we should be over there supporting them. You know, and you mentioned Jamie, the mayor, Kenner, over in Meadville, and that. Get on the phone, call her up, and that. Give her your support. She needs it, and that. And the people of Meadville also need your support.
Yes.
All right. It is 7:48. We're going to close this out, but I want to give some closing remarks as, first off, let's give a round of applause to these volunteers. I put this together. Also, I want to thank Dr. Christie for inviting me to be the moderator and also inviting the panelists. Raise your hand, come on, she didn't want to be acknowledged. But I want to close out with this. I'm going to say this. And he just actually left out, Marcus Atkinson. I remember when there was a George Floyd march that we had, myself, other clergymen, it was led by Bishop Brock. We marched down State Street. And I walked the front line with those men, along with other clergy, other politicians. We walked side by side. And then we went down to Perry Square. This is a silent march. And I remember at that march, Marcus Atkinson began to speak. And he said this. He said, what you've seen in the George Floyd situation was a man who trusts and truly believes in a system. What system is that? Racism. And how it protects white people. And he said, for you to sit on somebody's neck with your knee, confidently, with your sunglasses on like you're cooling, sitting down, having a drink. When you are slowly taking the life of an individual who's calling, a grown man calling out for his mama in his last words. He said that action was done because it was a belief in a system that nothing will happen to me. Because this has happened way too many times. For him to have a confidence that I can take this man's life, and to be truth be told, if it wasn't for that brave young lady who stood there and recorded for over 8 minutes, that system that he has a confidence in would have prevailed in favor of him. So, to us all, one thing that can bring about change is that we need politicians, community leaders, lawmakers who can break this system of racism in our country. And then next, where it starts at. Racism doesn't start in a school. It doesn't start on your job. Just like how we have to have a talk with our sons, that talk happens in the home. Racism is taught in the home. That's where it starts at. So we have to we need the lawmakers to help break this system. And then secondly, this starts at our homes. Thirdly, it starts in our communities because it takes a village to raise a child. And what that child is surrounded around, they can become a product of their environment. No, you don't have to be a criminal to be racist, but at the same time, you can carry a belief within you that can truly affect the lives of individuals around you who you do not know. So we all play a part in this. We all have a role in this. Someone asks, what can we do? Just keep coming out to events like this, showing your support, and also make sure, just like how we have to have a conversation at home, you break it by having a conversation at home. So as pastor, I want to say God bless to you all, and I hope that the God in you will create a mindset to bring an end to racism, and it starts with you. God bless you. God bless you. You all have a good night.